The moonlight spilled over the garden like a cup of liquid silver, a cool, luminous cascade that painted the leaves in shades of gray and white. It traced the delicate veins of new growth, kissed the plump, closed petals of sleeping flowers, and settled like a fine mist on the dewy lavender, causing each tiny bead of moisture to glisten like a forgotten star. A soft, whispering breeze stirred, a barely there sigh that rustled through the taller grasses and carried with it the deep, earthy perfume of damp soil, rich and dark and full of life. It was a symphony of quiet, a gentle hum of the living earth breathing under a watchful, luminous eye. The air was cool against the skin, carrying a faint, sweet fragrance of night-blooming flowers that only dared to open their hearts to the moon. Into this quiet world, a slow, deliberate form began to move. Dame Eleanor, a woman whose years were as etched and deep as the lines in the ancient oak that stood at the garden-'s edge, glided barefoot along the narrow, winding paths. The cool, soft soil yielded to her steps, a gentle, grounding touch that connected her to the very heart of her domain. She moved without haste, her hands held out slightly, palms down, as if she were a diviner feeling for the energy of the plants, their silent, potent rhythm. Her fingers, long and nimble, brushed over the tops of herbs, a whisper-soft caress that seemed to say, "I see you. I know you. My little ones," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum that barely disturbed the stillness. "Your power is great tonight." She spoke of their healing powers, of the salves and teas and potions they would become. The mallow to soothe the sting, the yarrow to staunch the flow. A gift, a sacred gift from the earth to the weary soul. Her words were a soft chant, a lullaby for the sleeping plants, a recognition of the life force that pulsed in their stems and leaves. Her steps led her to a patch of low-growing chamomile, its white petals like miniature suns with golden hearts, glowing faintly under the moonlight. This was her destination. This was the moment. She knelt with the soft rustle of her simple linen dress, her knees sinking into the yielding earth. The chamomile perfume, sweet and apple-like, rose to meet her, a scent of comfort and calm. She closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling the fragrance, letting it fill her lungs and settle deep within her. This was the night of the full moon. It was a belief passed down from her grandmother, and her grandmother's grandmother before her, a truth woven into the very fabric of their knowledge. Herbs gathered under the full moon held twice their healing power. It was a simple magic, a partnership with the cosmic dance of the sun and moon and earth. The light of the full moon, they believed, infused the plants with a potent, concentrated energy, a lunar essence that made their medicinal properties twice as strong, their comforting qualities twice as deep. Eleanor's hands, so gentle and knowing, began to gather the delicate blossoms, pinching them from their stems with a soft snap, snap, snap. Each flower was a precious treasure, carefully placed in the woven basket at her side. The touch of the soft soil beneath her bare hands and feet was a constant anchoring presence. The earth was alive, teeming with life, and she was a part of it. The gentle rustle of leaves was the garden's breath, a slow, steady rhythm that matched her own. The whisper of her voice was a part of the wind, her own energy an extension of the plants she nurtured. This wasn't work. It was a sacred ritual. She worked on, a silent communion with the earth and the sky. The cool night air on her skin, the earthy scent of the soil, the sweet fragrance of chamomile, the soft sounds of the night, each sensation was a thread in the rich tapestry of the garden. And as Dame Eleanor turned toward the lavender beds, the silver moon followed her every step. The winding paths of the garden, a network of soft, dark earth, lay illuminated by the generous light of the full moon. The silver glow softened the edges of everything, turning the sharp angles of stones into gentle curves, and bathing the dew-kissed leaves in a shimmering, ethereal light. A faint, hypnotic rhythm of distant crickets and the soft rustle of leaves in the night breeze created a quiet melody, a lullaby for the sleeping world. The air, cool and clear, carried a deep, earthy scent of soil mingled with the sweeter, more potent fragrances of flowers that only shared their secrets with the moon. Along these paths, a figure moved with a quiet, deliberate grace. It was Dame Eleanor, her bare feet sinking into the cool, yielding earth. Each step was a mindful connection, a soft, silent punctuation in the garden's nocturnal peace. The soil was a living thing beneath her soles, cool and fine, molding itself to the shape of her feet. It was a grounding sensation, a gentle reminder of her place in this wild, beautiful sanctuary. She moved without hurry, her simple linen dress a pale silhouette against the deeper shadows of the trees. Her hands, ever in motion, were her other senses. They glided just above the plants, a feather-light touch, a greeting to each living thing. They brushed against the low-lying ferns, feeling the delicate, frond-like texture, then rose to meet the taller stalks of valerian, feeling the slight resistance of their stems. It was an intimate conversation, a language of texture and touch that she understood instinctively. Her slow, meditative walk led her to the heart of the garden, where the lavender grew in fragrant, silvery green clumps. In the moonlight, the slender spires of the flowers looked like a soft, smoky haze of purple, their tiny blossoms packed tightly, holding all their essence within. The air around them was thick with a scent so profoundly calming, it felt like a physical presence, a gentle wave of tranquility washing over her. With a slow intake of breath, she knelt, her knees once more finding the soft comfort of the earth. Her hands reached out and gently cupped a large clump of the lavender. The texture was both firm and soft. The stems were resilient, and the tiny, papery petals of the blossoms yielded to her touch. She ran her fingers slowly up a single stalk, feeling the bumpy, clustered flowers, the sensation a soft, rhythmic caress against her skin. She brought her face close, inhaling deeply. The fragrance of the lavender filled her, a deep, restorative calm that seemed to quiet the very pulse of her blood. It was the scent of peace, of deep, untroubled rest. "Little peacekeepers," she whispered, her voice a soft, almost imperceptible hum. "You hold the night's quiet in your blossoms." She thought of the old stories, the wisdom passed down through generations. It was said that a sachet of lavender, placed beneath a pillow, could chase away the most persistent worries and invite the kind of sleep that heals the spirit as well as the body. It was a simple magic, a gentle offering from the earth to the restless human mind. They believed that the plant's essence, distilled or simply dried, could calm the frantic hum of a troubled soul, soothing it into a state of profound peace. It was the scent of stillness, of a mind finally at rest. Eleanor's hands continued their gentle work, gathering a small handful of the blossoms, placing them in a separate pouch in her basket. She would dry them, and their fragrance would become the gift of quiet for those who needed it most. The touch of the plant, the feel of its leaves and flowers, the deep, calming scent, all of it was a part of her ritual, a part of the simple, potent magic she shared with the world. And as Dame Eleanor approached the rosemary bushes, the garden seemed to sigh in the night breeze. The garden deepened here, folding in on itself to create a cozy, intimate corner where the herbs grew thick and lush, their leaves overlapping like a living tapestry. The moonlight, filtering through the branches of an old apple tree, danced across the leaves in shifting patterns of silver and shadow. A soft, steady breeze carried a rich mosaic of scents, the damp, loamy earth, the sweet perfume of late-blooming flowers, and something fresh and green that hinted at protection and strength. The quiet murmur of night insects, a constant, gentle hum, wove itself into the fabric of the night, a reassuring sound in the dark. Dame Eleanor moved into this sanctuary, her bare feet silent on the soft soil. Her movements were a graceful dance of reverence, a slow acknowledgement of the life around her. She didn't just walk. She flowed, her hands held out, her fingertips grazing the tops of the plants. It was a language of touch. A touch for the velvety softness of mullein, a brief caress for the spiky leaves of comfrey. She whispered to each one, her voice a low, breathy hum that was more a vibration than a sound. "My sturdy friends," she murmured, "your gifts are many. For bruises and for bones, you bring your strength." She followed a faint path that led her toward a robust, well-established rosemary bush. Its branches were a dark, dense mass against the moonlit background, holding their form with a dignified, upright posture. The air around it was sharp and clean, filled with a scent that was both invigorating and ancient. Kneeling once more, Dame Eleanor reached out and let her fingers drift over the rosemary's needles. The texture was unlike anything else in the garden. Each tiny leaf was a slender, stiff needle, a firm and resilient green that felt like a miniature embrace against her skin. The sensation was a gentle prickle, a lively, insistent touch that seemed to awaken her senses. She ran her hand slowly along a branch, feeling the dense cluster of needles, the woody texture of the stem. It was a plant of structure and purpose, and she could feel it in her fingertips. She brought her hand close to her nose and inhaled deeply. The aroma was a revelation, sharp and camphor-like, with a resinous undertone that spoke of a deep-rooted, enduring life. It was the smell of clarity, of a crisp winter morning, of something old and wise. "Oh, my dear Rosemary," she whispered, her voice a soft sigh in the quiet night. "You are the protector of the garden, are you not?" She remembered the old beliefs, the whispered wisdom of her ancestors. They believed that rosemary was a guardian plant, its very presence warding off illness and evil spirits. A sprig of rosemary hung above a door was a protective charm, a silent sentinel that kept a home safe. She knew of its medicinal power, of how a simple tea of its leaves could aid digestion and soothe a weary head. But there was another, more profound belief she held dear. Rosemary, they said, was for remembrance. It was the herb of memory, a gentle and powerful aid to the mind. A tiny sprig, carried in a pocket or simply held and inhaled, could sharpen the mind and help one recall forgotten things. It was a quiet comfort for those who feared losing their memories, a fragrant reminder of a life well lived. Her hands moved with a purpose now, not just caressing, but gathering. She snipped a few of the woody stems, placing them carefully in her basket, the sharp, clean scent mingling with the sweet chamomile and calming lavender she had already collected. The touch of the needles, the invigorating aroma, the deep-seated wisdom they represented, all of it filled her with a sense of quiet purpose. And as Dame Eleanor reached toward the sage plants, the night seemed to wrap the garden in a peaceful embrace. The garden opened here into a small, quiet clearing, a circular space where the moonlight was not filtered by branches, but poured down in an unbroken wash of silver light. It was a space of simple order and profound peace. Herbs and flowers were arranged in neat, fragrant rows, each plant a small universe unto itself. The dew, now a heavy, pearly coat, glistened on every leaf and petal, catching the moonlight and scattering it into 1,000 tiny sparks of light. The air was still and cool, carrying the concentrated scent of the plants, and the faint, steady hum of night creatures was the clearing's only song. Kneeling gently in this luminous space, Dame Eleanor was a quiet anchor in the moonlight. Her hands moved with a familiar rhythm, brushing the leaves of the herbs, a silent greeting to each one. She moved without haste, her breath a soft, barely there sound that mingled with the night air. For Eleanor, the full moon was a time of great significance. The phases of the moon, she believed, were not just a celestial cycle, but a deep, guiding force for the earth and its plants. Just as the tide swells with the moon's pull, the energy within the herbs swelled and peaked under its full silver light. It was at this time that their powers were believed to be at their zenith, their healing essence most potent and pure. Her slow journey brought her to the sage plants, their broad, oval leaves a striking, ghostly silver in the moonlight. The color was soft and muted, a hue that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it harshly. It was a color of quiet strength and ancient wisdom. She reached out with a hand that was a repository of knowledge and gently brushed her fingers over a leaf. The texture was a revelation, not smooth or waxy, but a soft, velvety felt, a fine down that felt delicate yet firm to the touch. The sensation was a comforting one, like stroking a small, quiet animal. As she touched the leaves, a powerful, pungent aroma was released. It was an earthy, slightly peppery scent with a resinous, smoky undertone. It was the smell of cleansing, of old knowledge, of something sacred. She brought a leaf to her nose and inhaled deeply, letting the potent fragrance fill her lungs and settle in the quiet spaces of her mind. "My wise one," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You hold the memory of old seasons?" She thought of the old stories, the whispered knowledge passed down for generations. Sage was the great protector. It was believed that a smudge of sage could clear a room of stagnant energy and cleanse a person as spirit. It was the plant of purification, a silent sentry against negativity and harm. But more than that, it was the herb of wisdom. The very name salvia was derived from the Latin word for to heal or to save, and it was said that a daily tea of sage could not only improve memory, but also bring clarity of thought and a quiet inner knowing. A person who carried a leaf of sage was thought to be protected not just in body, but in mind and spirit as well. Eleanor's hands moved with a gentle, focused intention, snipping a few of the broad, silvery leaves and placing them carefully into a cloth pouch in her basket. She would dry them slowly, and their smoky fragrance would be a gift of clarity and protection for those who sought it. The touch of the velvety leaf, the potent, cleansing aroma, the deep-seated wisdom they represented, all of it filled her with a sense of quiet purpose. And as Dame Eleanor turned toward the mint rose, the garden seemed to hold its breath in the soft night air. The garden held its own special kind of life after the sun went down. The air was a tapestry of soft, shifting sounds, the steady, hypnotic trill of crickets, a tiny, constant heartbeat in the night, and the occasional soft, inquisitive hoot of a distant owl, a gentle question into the darkness. A soft breeze stirred, a barely there whisper that moved through the leaves, carrying with it a mingling of every scent the garden held, the rich earth, the smoky sage, the sweet chamomile, and something else, something cool and invigorating. Dame Eleanor moved into this nocturnal world, a silent, reverent presence. Her barefoot steps were so light they did not disturb the delicate dew on the leaves, and she moved as if she were a part of the night herself. She paused, listening for a moment to the symphony of the night creatures, a smile playing on her lips. A small field mouse rustled in the leaves nearby, a fleeting shadow, and she simply watched it, a silent acknowledgement of their shared space. Her path led her to a quiet corner where the mint grew. It was a vigorous, sprawling patch, its dark green leaves so abundant they formed a soft, low carpet on the ground. In the moonlight, the serrated edges of the leaves caught the light, giving them a frosted appearance. The air around the mint was cool and clean, carrying its unmistakable, exhilarating aroma. Kneeling on the cool, damp earth, Eleanor reached out her hands. Her fingers brushed against the mint leaves, a feather-light touch. The texture was smooth, but with a subtle crinkle, a gentle crispness that was unique to the plant. The stems were square and firm, a testament to its sturdy, resilient nature. With a gentle sigh, she plucked a few leaves from the stem. Then she performed a small, intimate ritual. She placed a single leaf in the palm of her hand, and with a slow, deliberate motion, she began to rub it between her thumb and forefinger. The sound was a tiny, satisfying whisper, a soft crush of the leaf yielding its essence. The fragrance that was released was a revelation. Not just the soft scent on the air, but a concentrated, powerful aroma It was simultaneously cool and spicy, fresh and deep. It was the smell of awakening, of clarity, of a deep, clean breath. "A little bright one," she whispered, her voice a soft hum against the sounds of the night. "Your spirit is a gift of clear water." She remembered the old beliefs, the traditions whispered from one generation to the next. They believed that mint held a powerful, cleansing energy. A simple tea of its leaves could settle a nervous stomach and calm a troubled mind, chasing away the worries that kept a person from a peaceful sleep. It was a plant of protection, too, a silent guard against negative thoughts and bad dreams. A handful of fresh mint tucked into a pillow was said to bring restful slumber, its invigorating scent chasing away restless thoughts and allowing the body and spirit to find a quiet harmony. It was a simple magic, born of the earth's own generosity. Eleanor's hands continued their gentle work, gathering a small handful of the leaves, their invigorating fragrance mingling with the other scents in her basket. She would use them to make a soothing tea, a final gift of calm for those who sought her help. The touch of the cool, crinkly leaves, the invigorating, clean aroma, the deep-seated wisdom they held, all of it was a part of her ritual, a part of the gentle magic she shared with the world. And as Dame Eleanor began arranging herbs for her nightly preparations, the garden seemed to hum softly in agreement. The garden air grew still in a small clearing near its heart, a quiet nexus where paths met. The soft moonlight, a luminous balm, fell without obstruction, illuminating the neatly arranged piles of herbs Dame Eleanor had carefully collected. Each one, the delicate chamomile blossoms, the slender lavender spires, the broad, silvery sage leaves lay waiting, their scents mingling in a fragrant cloud just above the cool, damp earth. The gentle rustle of leaves was the only sound now, a soft, hushed breath of the garden itself. Kneeling at the center of this luminous circle, Dame Eleanor was a figure of quiet grace and deep intention. Before her sat a small, empty pouch woven from fine linen. This was the final ritual of her nightly walk, the careful act of bringing the garden's gifts together for a single sacred purpose. Her movements were slow and deliberate, each touch a deliberate act of reverence. She reached for the chamomile first, the tiny sunlight blossoms she had gathered earlier. Her fingers, so practiced and gentle, brushed over them. The feel was dry and papery, a soft, almost weightless texture that seemed to hold the warmth of the sun even in the cool night. She took a moment to bring a small handful to her nose, inhaling the sweet, apple-like scent that was the very essence of comfort and peace. "My little stars," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the comfort for a weary heart." She spoke of the old beliefs, the stories whispered around fires on dark nights, of how a tea brewed from these very flowers could soothe the troubled mind and ease the day's anxieties. The chamomile was the first gift, a promise of gentle rest and quietude. With an exquisite care, she began to place the tiny blossoms into the linen pouch, the sound a soft, dry whisper as they settled inside. Next, her hand moved toward the lavender. The slender stalks, with their densely packed, purple blossoms, lay in a small pile. Her fingers brushed over them, feeling the papery, almost brittle texture of the flowers and the firm resilience of the stems. She brought a stalk to her face and inhaled deeply. The fragrance of the lavender was thick and profoundly calming, a clean, herbal scent that spoke of deep, untroubled sleep. "My little peacemakers," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You bring harmony to the restless." She remembered the lore of her ancestors, who believed that lavender held the power to soothe the frantic hum of a troubled spirit, lulling it into a state of profound calm. It was a gift of tranquility. She carefully placed the lavender stalks and blossoms into the pouch, arranging them gently on top of the chamomile, a layer of calm settling over the layer of comfort. Finally, she turned her attention to the silvery green sage leaves. She picked up a single broad leaf, its color a ghostly pale green in the moonlight. The texture was unique, a soft, velvety felt, a fine down that felt delicate yet firm to the touch. The aroma, when she brought it close, was sharp and earthy, a resinous, smoky undertone that spoke of ancient knowledge and protection. "My wise guardian," she whispered, the words a low, steady chant. "You stand sentry for the soul." She recalled the old wisdom. Sage was the great protector, its presence and scent warding off negativity. It was the herb of clarity and wisdom, a quiet sentry for the mind. With a final, delicate touch, she placed the sage leaves into the pouch, folding them carefully over the lavender and chamomile. The pouch was now full, a small bundle of the night's magic, ready for tomorrow's remedies. She held it in her palms for a moment, feeling the shapes and textures of the herbs within, a palpable promise of healing. And as Dame Eleanor set the pouch aside, she turned her attention to the lemon balm, ready for the next ritual. The garden air grew still in a small clearing near its heart, a quiet nexus where paths met. The soft moonlight, a luminous balm, fell without obstruction, illuminating the neatly arranged piles of herbs Dame Eleanor had carefully collected. Each one, the delicate chamomile blossoms, the slender lavender spires, the broad, silvery sage leaves lay waiting, their scents mingling in a fragrant cloud just above the cool, damp earth. The gentle rustle of leaves was the only sound now, a soft, hushed breath of the garden itself. Kneeling at the center of this luminous circle, Dame Eleanor was a figure of quiet grace and deep intention. Before her sat a small, empty pouch woven from fine linen. This was the final ritual of her nightly walk, the careful act of bringing the garden's gifts together for a single sacred purpose. Her movements were slow and deliberate, each touch a deliberate act of reverence. She reached for the chamomile first, the tiny sun-like blossoms she had gathered earlier. Her fingers, so practiced and gentle, brushed over them. The feel was dry and papery, a soft, almost weightless texture that seemed to hold the warmth of the sun even in the cool night. She took a moment to bring a small handful to her nose, inhaling the sweet, apple-like scent that was the very essence of comfort and peace. "My little stars," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the comfort for a weary heart." She spoke of the old beliefs, the stories whispered around fires on dark nights, of how a tea brewed from these very flowers could soothe the troubled mind and ease the day's anxieties. The chamomile was the first gift, a promise of gentle rest and quietude. With an exquisite care, she began to place the tiny blossoms into the linen pouch, the sound a soft, dry whisper as they settled inside. Next, her hand moved toward the lavender. The slender stalks, with their densely packed, purple blossoms, lay in a small pile. Her fingers brushed over them, feeling the papery, almost brittle texture of the flowers and the firm resilience of the stems. She brought a stalk to her face and inhaled deeply. The fragrance of the lavender was thick and profoundly calming, a clean, herbal scent that spoke of deep, untroubled sleep. "My little peacemakers," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You bring harmony to the restless." She remembered the lore of her ancestors, who believed that lavender held the power to soothe the frantic hum of a troubled spirit, lulling it into a state of profound calm. It was a gift of tranquility. She carefully placed the lavender stalks and blossoms into the pouch, arranging them gently on top of the chamomile, a layer of calm settling over the layer of comfort. Finally, she turned her attention to the silvery green sage leaves. She picked up a single broad leaf, its color a ghostly pale green in the moonlight. The texture was unique, a soft, velvety felt, a fine down that felt delicate yet firm to the touch. The aroma, when she brought it close, was sharp and earthy, a resinous, smoky undertone that spoke of ancient knowledge and protection. "My wise guardian," she whispered, the words a low, steady chant. "You stand sentry for the soul." She recalled the old wisdom. Sage was the great protector, its presence and scent warding off negativity. It was the herb of clarity and wisdom, a quiet sentry for the mind. With a final delicate touch, she placed the sage leaves into the pouch, folding them carefully over the lavender and chamomile. The pouch was now full, a small bundle of the night's magic, ready for tomorrow's remedies. She held it in her palms for a moment, feeling the shapes and textures of the herbs within, a palpable promise of healing. And as Dame Eleanor set the pouch aside, she turned her attention to the lemon balm, ready for the next ritual. The soft, silver moonlight found its way to a quiet row of lemon balm, where the broad, heart-shaped leaves seemed to glow with a gentle, inner light. A soft breeze, a barely there sigh in the night, rustled the plants, causing a subtle, rhythmic whisper that was a perfect accompaniment to the hush of the garden. With the breeze came a fragrance, a clean, sweet, citrus-like scent that was both refreshing and profoundly calming, a perfume of pure tranquility. Dame Eleanor moved toward this fragrant row, her movements a study in slow, deliberate grace. She knelt, her knees finding the cool, soft earth, and she paused for a moment. Her breath, a low, steady rhythm, matched the gentle rustle of the leaves. She inhaled slowly, deeply, allowing the sweet, lemony perfume to fill her lungs, and exhaled, a soft release of the day's quiet burdens. She repeated this, a slow, meditative breath in, a soft, complete breath out, finding a peaceful cadence between her own rhythm and the garden's. Her hands reached out to the lemon balm. The leaves, with their distinct crinkled texture, were soft and yielding to the touch. They felt cool against her fingertips, a whisper of velvet and paper. She ran her hand gently over a cluster of leaves, feeling their delicate, veiny pattern, their subtle resistance. It was a texture of calm, a feeling of softness and strength combined. She lifted a single leaf to her nose. The aroma was more concentrated here, a bright, clean note of citrus mingling with a deeper herbal sweetness. It was the scent of comfort and quiet joy. "My little sunbeam," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You bring light to the shadows of the heart." She thought of the old stories, the whispered knowledge passed down for generations. They believed that lemon balm, a gift from the earth, was a remedy for melancholy and worry. A simple tea brewed from its leaves was said to lift the spirits, to soothe a restless mind, and to chase away the heavy feelings that could settle in the heart like a fog. It was a plant of profound reassurance and peace. The very presence of it in a garden was thought to bring a sense of harmony and well-being. Eleanor's hands began their gentle work, gathering a small bunch of the leaves, snipping them with a soft snip, snip, snip. Each leaf was handled with reverent attention, carefully placed in her basket. The sound of the snipping was a quiet, rhythmic beat, a part of her meditative ritual. She worked slowly, feeling the leaves, inhaling the scent, and letting her mind drift into a state of profound calm. The entire process was not just about collecting herbs. It was about connecting with their essence, absorbing their quiet power, and carrying that tranquility with her. And as Dame Eleanor stepped toward the catnip, the night seemed to hum in quiet harmony. The garden, in this deep part of the night, seemed almost alive, a living, breathing entity. The moonlight did not simply fall upon the leaves. It was absorbed and then released in a soft, ethereal glimmer, causing each plant to glow with its own inner light. A soft hum, a low, resonant vibration that was felt more than heard, filled the air, a sign of the earth's quiet energy at its peak. A gentle breeze, a cool, loving breath, moved through the space, carrying with it a mingling of every scent, the sweet chamomile, the sharp rosemary, the clean lemon balm, a perfect, fragrant blend. Dame Eleanor moved through this enchanted world, her bare feet silent on the path. She was not just a visitor. She was a part of this living tapestry. As she passed, the leaves of the herbs seemed to lean in, a subtle, almost imperceptible tilt of their heads, as if greeting her with a silent nod. The air around her felt different, a little warmer, a little more alive. She smiled, a soft, knowing curve of her lips. She felt this connection, this quiet acknowledgement from the plants she nurtured. Her slow journey brought her to a patch of catnip, a wild, abundant plant with soft, serrated leaves and tiny, unassuming flowers. In the moonlight, the stems looked strong and resilient, and the pale, papery blossoms were like miniature stars scattered throughout the green. She knelt, her knees finding the cool, damp earth, and she reached out a hand. She did not grasp the plant, but simply hovered her fingers just above the leaves, and she felt it. A gentle vibration, a faint, friendly hum that seemed to rise from the very heart of the plant, a tiny, happy tremor. It was a silent acknowledgement, a greeting of pure energy. Her fingertips, a sensitive and knowing part of her, could feel the life force, the quiet magic that pulsed within the catnip. With a soft intake of breath, she allowed her hand to brush lightly over the petals and leaves. The texture was soft, slightly fuzzy, a velvety feel that was warm and yielding. She felt the vibration grow a little stronger under her touch, a tiny purr of contentment. She lifted a few leaves to her nose. The aroma was fresh and earthy, with a minty undertone that was both familiar and wild. It was the scent of pure joy and gentle chaos. "My little dancers," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "Your spirit is a song for the heart." She thought of the old stories, the whispered knowledge passed down through the ages. Catnip was known as a plant of wild happiness, a simple remedy for a heavy spirit. They believed that a tea brewed from its leaves could bring a gentle, profound sense of relaxation, calming the nerves and soothing a mind that had been too long on edge. It was a plant of gentle release, a gift for those who needed to simply let go. Eleanor's hands began their gentle work, gathering a small handful of the leaves and blossoms, handling them with reverent attention. She placed them carefully in her basket, their wild, happy energy mingling with the calm of the chamomile and the wisdom of the sage. The touch of the velvety leaves, the gentle vibration she felt, the invigorating, wild aroma, all of it filled her with a sense of quiet joy. And as Dame Eleanor approached the central fountain, the garden seemed to sigh in the silver moonlight. The central fountain stood as a quiet heart to the garden, its gentle, ceaseless activity a low, soothing counterpoint to the stillness of the night. The water, a ribbon of pure silver, trickled softly from a stone spout, its sound a constant, hypnotic whisper. A cool mist, a fine, ethereal spray, rose from the surface of the pool, kissing the air and the surrounding stones. Moonbeams, long and pale, caught the surface, reflecting and dancing off the gently rippling water, a shifting kaleidoscope of light. The herbs that grew in neat circles around the fountain's edge seemed to shimmer faintly, their leaves coated in a delicate film of moisture and moonlight. Dame Eleanor approached this sacred space, her barefoot steps so quiet they made no sound on the wet stones. She knelt at the fountain's edge, her hands held out, palms down, just above the water. She let the cool mist settle on her skin, a gentle, refreshing touch that felt like a quiet blessing from the night. She leaned closer, her fingers dipping lightly into the water. The liquid was smooth and surprisingly warm, a contrast to the cool night air. She let the water flow between her fingers, a sensation of peace and fluidity. Around the fountain's edge, where the stones were permanently damp, grew a thick cluster of holy basil. Its leaves, a deep green with a hint of purple, were strong and fragrant. She reached for a sprig, her fingers gently detaching it from the plant. The leaves felt firm and slightly rough to the touch, a texture of ancient wisdom and resilience. She took the sprig and with a slow, deliberate motion, began to brush it along the cool, smooth stone of the fountain's edge. The action released the herb's powerful, sweet, and clove-like scent. an aroma that was both calming and deeply spiritual. It was the fragrance of quiet sanctuary, a perfume that seemed to cleanse the air around her. "My blessed one," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the balm for the soul's deep ache." She thought of the whispered stories, the lore passed down through generations. Holy basil was not merely for the body. It was a sacred plant for the spirit. It was believed to bring profound calm and clarity of mind, helping to release the emotional burdens that one carried. Its presence was a shield, a silent guardian that offered a gentle, unwavering protection against sadness and fear. Eleanor continued her slow, rhythmic brushing of the basil against the stone, the soft hiss of the leaves and the gentle trickle of the water creating a harmonious, meditative sound. The fragrance filled her, a wave of spiritual peace that settled deep within her. It was a simple, quiet act, a communion between the plant, the water, and her own spirit. She took a moment to inhale the scent from the sprig, letting its wisdom fill her, before placing it carefully in her basket. The holy basil, a gift of protection and clarity, was now a part of her nightly collection, ready to be prepared for those who sought not just physical healing, but a balm for their weary souls. And as Dame Eleanor turned to the evening primrose, the night held a soft, attentive hush. The garden held a secret in this quiet corner, a place where the ordinary gave way to the extraordinary. Here, under the full silver moon, a different kind of life awoke. Night-blooming flowers, their petals tightly furled during the day, now slowly, softly began to open. The motion was a silent unfurling, a graceful, unhurried surrender to the night. A faint, heady perfume, sweet and mysterious, filled the air, a fragrance that only the moon could coax from them. A soft rustling of leaves and the gentle breeze was the only accompaniment to this quiet spectacle. She knelt with a soft sigh of contentment, her body finding its natural place on the cool, damp earth. Her breath, a low and steady rhythm, matched the slow opening of the petals around her. The air was rich with the fragrance of the night, and she breathed it in, letting the magic of the moment fill her. Her attention settled on the evening primrose. Its blossoms, a vibrant, luminous yellow, were now fully open, their petals glowing like tiny lanterns under the moonlight. The sight was a vision of delicate beauty, a symbol of the strength that blossoms in the dark. She reached out, her fingers hovering just above a flower, a moment of silent reverence before she touched it. The petals were unbelievably delicate, a gossamer-thin texture that felt like a whisper against her skin. They were as fragile as butterfly wings, cool and silken to the touch. She gently cupped a blossom in her hand, feeling its ephemeral beauty. The fragrance was subtle, a light, sweet scent that was entirely different from the day-blooming flowers, an aroma that spoke of secrets and quiet strength. "My little moon child," she whispered, her voice a soft, breathy hum. "You are a vision born of starlight." She thought of the whispered stories, the lore passed down through generations of herb women. The evening primrose was not just a plant. It was a mystical messenger. It was believed to hold a deep connection to the moon's energy, a conduit for its gentle, powerful light. The seeds were thought to contain a kind of liquid magic, a remedy for those who struggled in the darkness, a gentle light for the soul during times of shadow. They believed its presence in a garden invited good fortune and peaceful dreams, a silent guardian that watched over the sleeping world. Eleanor's hands began their final task of the night, harvesting the delicate petals with a quiet grace. She gathered them with a profound sense of respect, placing them carefully in a separate, small pouch in her basket. The feel of the petals, so soft and fragile, the subtle, sweet scent, the whispered magic she knew they held, all of it was the culmination of her long, silent journey through the garden. And as Dame Eleanor prepared her herbs for the night's remedies, the garden seemed to breathe softly around her. Near the heart of the garden, nestled between tall foxglove and climbing vines, stood a small, weathered workbench. The moonlight, a soft, unwavering silver, illuminated its surface, turning the nicks and grooves in the wood into a roadmap of quiet labor. Arranged neatly on the bench were small bowls and jars, their smooth surfaces cool to the touch. In them lay the herbs Dame Eleanor had gathered, now crushed and waiting. The tiny golden hearts of chamomile, the silvery green fragments of sage, and the deep purple flecks of lavender. The gentle night sounds the distant hoot of an owl, the steady chorus of crickets blended with the faint, concentrated scents of the herbs, creating a perfect atmosphere of peaceful work. Dame Eleanor stood at the bench, her hands moving with a slow, practiced grace. Her journey through the garden was complete, and now, under the watchful moon, she would bring the plants' gifts to their final form. Her fingers, so knowing and gentle, reached for a bowl of chamomile. The crushed blossoms felt like a soft, dry powder, a fine, almost weightless texture that whispered of sun-warmed fields. She picked up a small pinch, rubbing it between her fingertips. The sweet, apple-like aroma was now even more potent, a deep, comforting fragrance that filled her senses. "My little sun gifts," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the promise of rest." She remembered the ancient wisdom, the quiet truth passed down through generations. A poultice of chamomile, warmed gently, could soothe tired eyes and calm irritated skin. A tea, steeped slowly, could quiet the restless thoughts of a worried mind, lulling it into a state of profound calm. With a tiny, wooden spoon, she began to measure the powder, her movements slow and meticulous as she prepared a simple, comforting remedy. Next, her attention turned to the sage. The crushed leaves were a different texture entirely, a slightly coarse powder, with the velvety feel of the fresh leaf still somehow present. The fragments were a ghostly silver green in the moonlight, and their aroma was sharp and earthy, a clean, peppery scent that was both invigorating and wise. She took a moment to inhale the fragrance from the bowl. "My wise one," she murmured, "you are the guardian of the home and heart." She recalled the medieval beliefs of how sage was burned to purify a space and ward off illness. She knew it was the herb of memory, its very presence a quiet aid to the mind. She began to mix the sage with a simple, unscented oil, her spoon making a soft, rhythmic swish, swish, swish against the smooth surface of the bowl. The mixture, a deep, aromatic paste, was a remedy for clarity, a balm for those who sought focus and protection. Finally, she reached for the lavender. The crushed blossoms were tiny and dark, their texture dry and slightly brittle. Their aroma was rich and profound, a clean, floral scent with an earthy undertone that spoke of peaceful slumber and gentle dreams. She took a small pinch, letting the fragrance fill the space around her. "My quiet dreams," she whispered, "you are the stillness of the night." She thought of the stories of lavender sachets, of how their calming scent could chase away a restless spirit and bring a deep, restorative sleep. She began to fold the lavender into a small square of soft linen, creating a delicate pouch that was light in her hands. The pouch was a simple, sacred thing, a gift of peace for a troubled soul. Her work was finished. The remedies were prepared, the garden's gifts transformed. She stood at the workbench, her hands resting on the smooth wood, and looked out into the moonlit expanse. The air was thick with the beautiful, healing scents, and the night felt complete. And as Dame Eleanor arranged the herbs for a nightly ritual, the garden seemed to lean in closer under the silver moon. A quiet circle of herbs lay under the full silver moonlight, a small, sacred space within the larger tapestry of the garden. The leaves and flowers seemed to glow with a soft, ethereal light, each one a tiny point of luminous energy. A faint, cool breeze moved through the circle, a gentle sigh that carried with it the mingled scents of rosemary, thyme, and the lingering presence of sage. It was here that Dame Eleanor began her final ritual of the night, a quiet communion with the earth and the moon. She knelt in the center of the circle, her body a quiet silhouette against the luminous herbs. Her movements were slow and deliberate, each motion holding a deep sense of purpose. Before her, she laid out a small, flat stone, its surface cool and smooth. She reached for the herbs she had gathered, her hands moving with a practiced grace. First, she took up a sprig of rosemary. The woody stem felt firm and strong in her hand. Her fingers brushed over the needles, a slight prickling sensation that was both invigorating and ancient. The scent, a sharp, resinous aroma, filled her senses, a fragrance of clarity and deep-rooted strength. She arranged the sprig carefully on the stone, its dark green needles a striking contrast against the pale surface. "My wise guardian," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the memory keeper, the protector of old truths." She thought of the whispered stories, the lore passed down through generations. Rosemary was believed to be a powerful shield, its presence alone enough to ward off negativity and illness. A sprig of it placed by a bedside could bring restful, healing sleep. Its properties, they said, were not just for the body, but for the mind, a gentle aid to help one remember what was important and true. Next, she took a small handful of thyme. The tiny leaves, a delicate velvety texture, felt soft and yielding in her palm. The stems were thin and pliable, and the whole bunch was almost weightless. She gently crushed a few of the leaves between her thumb and forefinger, releasing a clean, earthy scent that was both sweet and subtly spiced. It was the perfume of courage and inner strength. She arranged the thyme in a small circle around the rosemary, the leaves a delicate green wreath around the more robust plant. "My brave little one," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You are a balm for a weary soul, a whisper of courage." She recalled the medieval beliefs of how thyme was a symbol of bravery. It was believed that carrying a sprig of thyme could strengthen the spirit and bring forth a sense of courage. A bath infused with its leaves could soothe tired muscles and restore one's inner vitality. The thyme, she knew, was a gift of restorative power, a gentle promise of strength for those who felt weak. She sat for a moment, her hands resting quietly in her lap, looking at the small, beautiful arrangement on the stone. The rosemary for protection and memory, and the thyme for courage and restoration. The scents of the two herbs mingled in the cool night air, a harmonious blend of strength and comfort. The entire ritual was a silent, peaceful act of intention, a way of focusing the moon's power and the herb's gifts for the purpose of healing. The rustle of the leaves and the faint scent of the plants were the only witnesses to her quiet ceremony. And as Dame Eleanor moved toward the nearby mint and catnip, the night seemed to wrap the garden in peaceful quiet. A quiet stretch of the garden pulsed with a subtle, hidden life. Small nocturnal animals, their forms a soft shadow in the moonlight, moved with a delicate rustle of leaves. A tiny footfall on the damp earth. A soft hum filled the air, a constant, low vibration that was the garden's own breath. The gentle night air carried the mingling scents of mint and catnip, their invigorating and wild perfumes, creating an atmosphere of lively peace. Dame Eleanor moved into this space, her barefoot steps so quiet they did not disturb the delicate balance of the night. She was a silent observer and a gentle participant. Her hands, so knowing and kind, held small sprigs of mint and catnip. She knelt near a low bush, her body a quiet silhouette against the luminous plants. A small field mouse, its nose twitching, emerged from the shadows. Eleanor did not move, simply holding out a tiny sprig of mint. The mouse, after a moment's hesitation, moved closer, its small body a flicker of life in the moonlight. She spoke in a voice that was barely a whisper, a low, breathy hum that was more a vibration than a sound. "Little one," she murmured, "a gift of clear water for your journey." She remembered the whispered knowledge of her ancestors, who believed that mint held a powerful, cleansing energy. A simple tea of its leaves could settle a nervous stomach and calm a troubled mind. For animals, It was a gentle offering of refreshment and peace. The mint leaves, with their distinct, serrated texture, felt cool and crisp under her fingers. The aroma was fresh and clean, a powerful scent of clarity that seemed to quiet the air itself. After the mouse took a soft nibble and vanished back into the shadows, a small, dark-furred cat, a stray that often found comfort in her garden, emerged from a patch of tall grass. Its eyes, luminous in the moonlight, watched her with a calm curiosity. Eleanor offered a sprig of catnip. The plant's leaves, soft and velvety to the touch, carried an earthy, wild aroma that was both familiar and intoxicating. "My little dancer," she whispered, a soft smile on her lips. "Your spirit is a song for the heart." She thought of the old stories, of how catnip was a plant of wild happiness, a simple remedy for a heavy spirit. For the animals, it was a profound source of joy and relaxation. She watched as the cat rubbed its head against the sprig, a soft purr vibrating through the still night. The action released the herb's powerful, happy essence, a scent that was a pure celebration of life. Eleanor's hands, so gentle and reverent, continued their quiet work. She placed a few more sprigs of mint and catnip on the damp earth, a small offering for any other creatures who might pass through the night. The whole act was a silent communion, a shared moment of peace between the human and the wild. The touch of the leaves, the invigorating and wild aromas, the quiet trust of the animals, all of it was a part of her ritual, a gentle conversation with the living world around her. She was not just a caretaker. She was a part of the garden's own gentle, breathing rhythm. And as Dame Eleanor continued her careful walk, the moonlight seemed to follow her, guiding her toward the reflection of sage and lemon balm. A quiet corner of the garden lay bathed in the soft, silver light of the moon. Here, the hum of night insects was a gentle, steady sound, a tiny, constant heartbeat in the dark. The leaves of the herbs, kissed by dew, shimmered gently, each one a small, luminous jewel. The air was a fragrant blend of clean, sweet lemon balm and the earthy, resinous perfume of sage. It was a space of profound peace and quiet contemplation. Dame Eleanor paused here, her journey through the garden a quiet memory. She stood for a moment, her hands resting softly at her sides, feeling the cool, gentle air on her skin. This was the moment of reflection, the quiet heart of her work. She was not just a collector of plants. She was a keeper of knowledge, a living vessel for the wisdom, whispered from one generation to the next. She reached out and let her fingers drift over a patch of lemon balm. The broad, crinkled leaves were soft and cool to the touch, a yielding, velvety texture that felt like a quiet sigh. She took a single leaf and brought it to her nose, inhaling the aroma slowly, deliberately. The scent was a pure, clean note of citrus, a refreshing sweetness that seemed to clear the mind and soothe the spirit. "My little bright one," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are a balm for a worried mind." She reflected on the ancient belief that lemon balm was a remedy for melancholy, a gentle medicine for a heavy heart. It wasn't about simply curing an ailment. It was about bringing light to the shadows, about reminding a person of the simple, quiet joys of life. The plant's very presence, she believed, was a comfort, a whisper of hope in the darkness. Her hand moved from the lemon balm to a neighboring cluster of sage. She ran her fingers over the silvery green leaves, feeling the unique, velvety felt texture, a softness that was also resilient. She crushed a leaf lightly between her fingers and inhaled the potent, earthy scent that was released. The aroma was sharp and clean, a powerful fragrance that spoke of protection and clarity. "My wise guardian," she murmured, "you are a shield for the soul." She thought of the dual nature of sage, a physical medicine for the body and a spiritual protector for the spirit. The medieval healers believed that sage was a great cleanser, its essence capable of purifying not just a room, but a person's thoughts and intentions. It was a plant of wisdom, a quiet reminder to seek clarity and to stand firm against fear. In this quiet space, under the watchful moon, Dame Eleanor saw the herbs not just as plants, but as living philosophies. The lemon balm offered a lesson in gentle comfort, a reminder that sweetness can heal. The sage taught a lesson in strength and clarity, a reminder that protection comes from within. Her work was a bridge between the physical and the spiritual, a way of using the earth's gifts to heal not just the body's ailments, but the heart's quiet pains. She was a silent practitioner of a profound and simple magic, a woman who understood that the moon is light and the herb's power were all part of the same beautiful healing truth. And as Dame Eleanor moved to the next row of lavender, the garden seemed to exhale a soft, peaceful sigh. A gentle row of herbs and flowers lay bathed in the soft, silver light of the moon, a quiet border between the wildness of the garden and the worn path. Each leaf, each petal, glistened with a fine coat of dew, catching the moonlight and holding it like a tiny, luminous star. A soft, cool wind, a barely air, but earth in the night, moved through the foliage, creating a gentle rustle that was the only sound for miles. Dame Eleanor moved along this row, her barefoot steps silent on the cool, damp soil. The earth beneath her feet was yielding and soft, a cool, grounding touch that connected her to the very heart of the garden. She moved without haste, her hands held out, palms down, a silent conversation with the plants. She let her fingertips drift, feeling the variety of textures, the rough, papery bark of an old rose bush, the smooth, almost slick surface of a broad dock leaf, the delicate, velvety softness of mullein. Each texture was a different story, a different feeling to be savored. She reached a cluster of lavender. The slender stalks, with their deep purple blossoms, stood firm and upright. She ran her hand gently over them. The flowers felt dry and papery to the touch, a texture that was both delicate and resilient. The fragrance of the lavender was profound, a clean, herbal sweetness that was the very essence of tranquility. She brought a sprig to her nose, inhaling deeply, letting the calming aroma fill her lungs and settle deep within her mind. "My little peacemakers," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are a whisper of calm in the night." She thought of the ancient wisdom, the stories passed down through generations. Lavender, they believed, held the power to soothe a troubled mind and bring forth a state of profound peace. It was a plant for deep, restorative sleep, a gentle promise of rest for the weary. The touch of its petals, she believed, was a physical reminder of that quiet, settling power. Her hands moved on, traveling to a neighboring patch of chamomile. The tiny, white flowers, with their golden hearts, looked like a scattering of miniature moons. She knelt, her knees sinking into the cool, soft earth, and she reached out. The texture of the blossoms was dry and papery, a fine, almost weightless feel that seemed to hold a sun-warmed warmth even in the cool night air. She gently cupped a handful of the blossoms in her palm, feeling their delicate, fragile nature. She brought them to her nose, inhaling the sweet, apple-like aroma that was the very essence of comfort. "My little stars," she murmured, "you are the comfort for a weary heart." She recalled the medieval beliefs, the simple magic of the chamomile. It was a plant of gentle reassurance, a remedy for anxiety and worry. The very act of touching its blossoms and inhaling their fragrance was, in itself, a form of healing, a quiet reminder that comfort could be found in the simplest of things. She sat for a moment, her hands resting quietly in her lap, feeling the cool, damp earth beneath her. The sounds of the night, the rustling wind, the distant cricket song, and the scents of the lavender and chamomile surrounded her in a peaceful, immersive embrace. Her journey through the garden was not just a task. It was a meditation, a ritual of connection and gratitude for the earth's quiet, potent gifts. And as Dame Eleanor approached the evening primrose, the night seemed to wrap the garden in a gentle, silvery embrace. A quiet nook, hidden from the main paths of the garden, lay bathed in the soft, silver light of the moon. Here, the night felt particularly still and attentive. Dewdrops, like tiny, luminous pearls, glistened on every petal and leaf, catching the moonlight and scattering it into 1,000 points of light. A gentle night breeze, a barely there sigh, moved through the foliage, creating a soft, rhythmic rustle that was the garden's own hushed melody. With it came a faint, sweet floral fragrance that was a secret known only to the night. Dame Eleanor moved into this sacred space, her barefoot steps silent on the cool, damp earth. Her hands, held out slightly before her, were her quiet guides. She ran her fingertips over a broad leaf, feeling the cool, slick surface and the tiny, pearly drops of dew that clung to it. She felt the gentle breeze on her skin, a soft, loving caress that carried the essence of every plant around her. These were the subtle sensory surprises of the garden, at night small, quiet gifts for a mindful soul. Her journey brought her to the evening primrose, its blossoms a brilliant, luminous yellow in the moonlight. These were the night's own lanterns, each petal a soft, silky texture that felt delicate and ephemeral to the touch. She knelt, her knees finding the yielding earth, and gently cupped the flower in her hand. The petal felt like a whisper against her skin, cool and impossibly soft. The fragrance was subtle, a light, sweet scent that hinted at secrets and gentle magic. "My little moonchild," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are a whisper of starlight in the dark." She recalled the medieval beliefs, the quiet magic associated with this night-blooming wonder. Evening primrose, they believed, was deeply connected to the moon's energy, a conduit for its soft, healing light. The oil from its seeds was thought to be a kind of liquid magic, a remedy for those who struggled in the darkness, a gentle light for the soul. The very act of touching its petals under the moonlight, she believed, was a way of connecting with that quiet, mystical power. Her hand moved on, traveling to a nearby patch of mint. The plants grew thick and lush, their dark green leaves a stark contrast to the glowing primrose. The aroma here was different, sharp and clean, an invigorating perfume that spoke of clarity and life. She took a small sprig, her fingers feeling the cool, slightly crinkled texture of the leaves and the firm, square stem. With a slow, deliberate motion, she gently crushed a leaf between her thumb and forefinger. The sound was a tiny, satisfying crush, and the scent that was released was a revelation. A concentrated, powerful aroma that was simultaneously cool and spicy. "My little bright one," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You bring light to the shadows of the heart." She recalled the old wisdom that a simple tea of mint could settle a nervous stomach and calm a troubled mind. It was a plant of protection, a silent guardian that warded off negative thoughts. The touch of the leaves, the invigorating aroma, all of it, was a gentle reminder of the power of simplicity and clarity. Eleanor sat for a moment in this quiet nook, feeling the cool air on her skin, smelling the beautiful blend of scents, and listening to the soft sounds of the night. Her hands, resting in her lap, were a testament to the night's work. The evening primrose and the mint, two very different plants, offered two very different gifts, both of them essential to her healing craft. And as Dame Eleanor moved to gather herbs for tomorrow's remedies, the garden seemed to breathe softly around her. A soft, shadowed section of the garden lay in a hush, a quiet waiting. The herbs here awaited their harvest, their forms a deep green and silver under the moonlight, which cast soft, luminous highlights on their leaves. A gentle rustle of foliage, a barely there whisper in the night breeze, was the only sound, a hushed breath from the sleeping world. The air was thick with the rich, earthy perfume of damp soil, mingled with the distinct, resinous scents of the herbs that grew in abundance here. Dame Eleanor moved into this sacred space, her barefoot steps silent on the cool earth. She came not to take, but to receive, her hands held out in a gesture of quiet gratitude. Her eyes, accustomed to the dark, found the sage plants first. Their broad silvery green leaves seemed to glow with a quiet inner light, a visual sign of the wisdom they held. She knelt with a soft sigh of contentment, her knees finding the yielding ground. She reached for a sage plant and, with a slow, deliberate motion, began to scrape the leaves from their woody stems with her fingertips. The texture was a familiar felt, a velvety softness that was unique to the plant. The sound was a soft, dry scraw-up, a gentle rasping that was a rhythmic part of her work. The aroma that was released was immediate and powerful, a sharp, earthy, and slightly peppery scent with a smoky undertone that was the very essence of purification. "My wise one," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the guardian of the home and heart." She thought of the whispered knowledge of her ancestors, who believed that sage was a great protector. Its smoke was used to cleanse a space, to ward off negativity and illness. It was also the herb of wisdom, believed to bring clarity of mind and a quiet inner knowing. The sage she collected tonight would be for those who sought not just physical healing, but a balm for a weary spirit, a shield for a troubled heart. Her hands moved on, traveling to a nearby cluster of rosemary bushes. The woody stems were strong and resilient, and the needle-like leaves held their form with a dignified grace. She took a sprig, and with a gentle touch, began to crush the leaves between her thumb and forefinger. The sensation was a firm, slightly prickly texture, and the sound was a quiet crunch, a subtle crackle of the leaves yielding their potent oil. The aroma that was released was sharp and clean, a powerful, camphor-like scent that was invigorating and ancient. "My brave little one," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You are the memory keeper, the protector of old truths." She recalled the medieval beliefs that rosemary was a powerful shield against harm and a potent aid for memory. A sprig of it placed by a bedside could bring restful, healing sleep, and its fragrance was a quiet reminder to hold on to what was true. The rosemary she collected tonight would be for those who needed strength, clarity, and the quiet comfort of remembrance. She worked on, her hands moving with a quiet, practiced grace, gathering the sage and rosemary with reverence. The tactile sensations, the scraping of the felted leaves, the gentle crunch of the needles, and the rich, potent aromas filled her senses, a deep and calming communion with the earth. Her basket, a small repository of the night's magic, slowly filled with the precious herbs, each one a promise of healing. And as Dame Eleanor walked through the quiet rows, the soft sounds of the night seemed to accompany her every step. Near the garden's ancient stone wall, where a tapestry of thick ivy climbed and clung to the cool, rough surface, the air felt different. It was a little cooler here, a fresh, moist chill that settled on the skin. Crickets sang softly, their rhythmic, hypnotic song a constant presence in the night. The moonlight, filtering through the intricate leaves of the ivy, cast a lace-like pattern of silver shadows on the ground, a delicate and beautiful dance of light and dark. Dame Eleanor moved toward this quiet sanctuary, her bare feet silent on the cool earth. She knelt by a cluster of herbs that grew close to the wall, their leaves and stems receiving the cool air and the soft light with a quiet contentment. Her hands, so knowing and gentle, reached out to the plants, her fingers brushing the velvety surface of the ivy, feeling the subtle veins and the sturdy resilience of its climbing stems. It was a grounding feeling, a connection to something old and strong. Her attention settled on a patch of lemon balm. She ran her hand gently over the broad, crinkled leaves. They were soft and yielding to the touch, a cool, velvet whisper against her fingertips. She took a single leaf and with a slow, deliberate motion, gently rubbed it between her thumb and forefinger. The sound was a soft, dry rustle, and the aroma that was released was pure and clean, bright, sweet citrus note that was both refreshing and profoundly calming. "My little sunbeam," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are the comfort for a weary heart." She thought of the ancient lore, the whispered stories that spoke of lemon balm's power to lift the spirits and chase away melancholy. It wasn't just a physical remedy. It was a plant for the soul, a gentle light for a mind filled with shadows. The very scent, she believed, was a reminder of joy and peace. Her hands moved on, traveling to a neighboring patch of wild thyme. The tiny, delicate leaves, with their deep green color, grew in a thick, low mat. She ran her fingers over them. The texture was soft and pliable, a feathery lightness that felt impossibly delicate. She crushed a few of the leaves between her fingers, releasing a clean, earthy scent that was both sweet and subtly spiced. It was the perfume of courage and resilience. "My brave little one," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You are a whisper of courage in the dark." She recalled the medieval beliefs of how time was a symbol of bravery and a source of strength. It was believed that carrying a sprig of thyme could strengthen the spirit and bring forth courage in the face of fear. A bath infused with its leaves could restore one's inner vitality. The thyme, she knew, was a gift of quiet strength, a gentle promise of power for those who felt weak. In this quiet corner, Dame Eleanor felt a deep connection to these two herbs. The lemon balm offered a lesson in comfort and joy, while the thyme offered a lesson in courage and resilience. Together, they were a complete remedy for the heart, a simple, powerful magic born of the earth and nurtured by the moon. Her hands, resting in her lap, were a testament to the night's work, and the cool air on her skin was a silent blessing. And as the moonlight deepened, the garden seemed to lean in, listening to her every word. A narrow pathway wound its way between tall, flowering rows of herbs, a verdant tunnel of fragrance and shadow. The scent of blossoms was heavy in the cool night air, a thick, sweet perfume that settled in the lungs and soothed the spirit. Here, in this quiet, secluded corridor, tiny fireflies drifted lazily, their soft, yellow-green lights winking on and off like miniature, earthbound stars. They moved without haste, their hypnotic dance creating a dreamlike, enchanted atmosphere that was a secret known only to the moon and the plants. Dame Eleanor moved down this path, her bare feet silent on the soft, cool earth. Her walk was a slow, rhythmic journey, each step a gentle punctuation in the night's stillness. She hummed softly under her breath, a low melodic sound that was barely a vibration, a wordless song of gratitude to the garden. Her fingertips, held out slightly before her, grazed the tops of the plants as she passed, a whisper-soft touch that was a form of greeting and acknowledgement. She paused at a tall stand of valerian, its strong, hollow stalks topped with delicate clusters of small, pale flowers. She reached out and let her fingers gently touch a flower head. The petals were soft and fragile, and the stalks were surprisingly sturdy, a combination of strength and delicacy. She brought her hand close to her nose, inhaling the aroma. The scent was a deep, earthy musk that was both potent and calming, a perfume that spoke of the earth's most profound and sleepy secrets. "My little sleepy one," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum. "You are a whisper of rest for the weary." She recalled the old stories, the whispered knowledge passed down for generations. Valerian, they believed, was one of the most powerful plants for promoting sleep and soothing anxiety. A tea brewed from its roots was said to quiet the most restless of minds, to lull a person into a deep, untroubled slumber. It was a plant for those who carried the weight of the day into the night, a gentle, fragrant promise of release. Her journey continued, leading her to a patch of yarrow. Its feathery, delicate leaves grew in a thick, lacy mat, and its flat, white flower heads looked like a miniature constellation under the moonlight. The fireflies drifted here, their gentle lights hovering just above the flowers, as if they too were drawn to its quiet, potent energy. She knelt, her knees finding the yielding earth, and let her hands drift over the leaves. The texture was fine and soft, almost like a feather, and the stems were surprisingly firm. She gently crushed a few of the lacy leaves between her fingers, releasing a sharp, clean, slightly peppery aroma that was both invigorating and medicinal. "My brave little one," she murmured, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "You are a shield for the healing heart." She recalled the medieval beliefs of how yarrow was a sacred plant for staunching blood and healing wounds. It was a plant of strength and protection, a quiet sentry for the body's well-being. Its leaves, she believed, were a symbol of resilience, its delicate beauty a cloak for its powerful, life-saving properties. She worked on, her hands moving with a quiet, practiced grace, gathering a few of the flowers and leaves. The scent of the valerian and the yarrow mingled in the air around her, a fragrant blend of calm and strength. The gentle dance of the fireflies, the hypnotic hum of the night, and the soft texture of the plants under her fingertips, all of it was a part of her ritual, a deep communion with the heart of the garden. And so, with each careful step, the night seemed to unfold gently before her. The heart of the garden was a place of profound stillness. Here, a small, shallow pond lay like a dark mirror, its surface perfectly calm and receptive. The moon, full and round, had its perfect twin in the water, a shimmering silver orb that pulsed with a quiet light. A small, nearby fountain released a gentle, ceaseless trickle of water, a soft, hypnotic melody that blended with the constant hum of night insects. The air was cool and still, rich with the mingling scents of all the herbs she had gathered, the sweet chamomile, the sharp rosemary, the soothing lavender, a fragrant testimony to her night's work. Dame Eleanor, her journey through the garden complete, moved toward the stone bench that rested at the water's edge. Her barefoot steps, which had been slow and deliberate throughout the night, were now a little heavier with a gentle weariness. With a soft sigh, she sat down, the coolness of the rough-hewn stone a solid grounding presence beneath her. She set her woven basket of herbs beside her, the small pouch of chamomile and sage, and the delicate sprigs of evening primrose, a fragrant, tangible collection of her night's labor. She simply sat for a time, her hands resting quietly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the moon's reflection in the pond. She felt the cool air on her skin, a gentle kiss from the night, and heard the soft, constant rhythm of the water. It was a moment of profound peace, a quiet communion with the entire garden. "My little moon," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum, a sound for her ears alone. "You see all? You watch over all things." She remembered a whispered story from her grandmother, a small piece of old lore that felt as true as the earth beneath her feet. It was said that the moon's light was not just for seeing, but for blessing. That herbs gathered under its full luminous gaze were not just more potent, but were also infused with a quiet celestial grace. That the moon, a silent observer of all healing and growth, poured its own gentle energy into the plants, making them more than just medicine, making them a conduit for its own tranquil light. She watched the reflection for a long, quiet moment, feeling the truth of the story deep within her. The herbs in her basket were not just plants. They were a part of this beautiful moonlit world. They held the earth's strength, the sun's warmth from the day, and now the moon's gentle blessing from the night. Her work was not just about collecting. It was about honoring this sacred, silent exchange. It was about listening to the quiet wisdom of the plants, and it was about being a bridge between their power and the people who needed them. And as she rose from the bench, her basket felt lighter, as though the moon itself had blessed her work. The journey's end came to a stop at the garden gate, a simple weathered wooden door framed by an arch of climbing roses. Their petals, now a soft, ghostly pink in the moonlight, were faintly perfumed, a sweet and delicate fragrance that was a final gift of the night. The moon was now high in the velvet sky, a perfect silver orb that cast a luminous, quiet light over the entire garden. Every leaf, every flower, every dew-kissed blade of grass seemed to glow from within, a silent testament to the magic of the moonlit hours. Dame Eleanor stood at the gate, her hands resting on the smooth, cool wood. Her basket, now full and fragrant with all the herbs she had gathered, rested gently at her feet. She paused for a long, quiet moment, turning to look back over the world she had just traversed. The garden was a picture of perfect peace, a silent, dreaming world that held all of its secrets close. She breathed in deeply, a slow, complete breath that filled her lungs with the mingling scents of rosemary and lavender, chamomile, and sage. It was the perfume of her work, the fragrant proof of a night well spent. Her hands moved from the gate to the roses, her fingers brushing the soft, cool petals that had opened their hearts to the night. She felt the cool air on her skin, a soft, final caress from the garden before she left it to its rest. All was still. The gentle hum of the night insects was a lulling presence, and the distant, constant trickling of the fountain was a perfect, peaceful song. She bent down, her hand reaching into her basket, and she took out a small sprig of rosemary and a tiny, white chamomile flower. She held them to her nose, inhaling their aromas one last time, a farewell to her friends in the garden. "My quiet guardians, my gentle comforts," she whispered, her voice a low, breathy hum that was barely a sound. She let the words be a final blessing, a soft prayer to the plants she had nurtured. "May your powers be strong, your rest be deep, and your wisdom be bright under the moon's gentle gaze." It was a simple, sacred vow, a final promise to the living, breathing world she was about to leave. She placed the sprigs back in her basket, a silent acknowledgement that the circle of her work was now complete. And so, beneath the silver gaze of the moon, she stepped inside, leaving the garden to dream until dawn.